Thank you for being here. German author William Engel, a few days ago, told us about the great gas reserves and the need between Qatar and Iran, a great deal of a gasoduct between Iran, Iraq, and Syria to deliver gas to the European Union, who are afraid from what happened in Fukushima, don't want to use nuclear power, so they're going to go green into gas, and the Israelis want to get the Syrian deal out of the way to sell their own gas, because in 2009, Israel has also got a great finding of large amounts of gas below their feet. And how much do you know about this, and do you believe that this is going to come true?
Well, I mean, there are, I think perhaps, where did Johnny go? I think perhaps Johnny can speak more specifically, there you are, can speak more specifically to the natural resources that come to play with respect to Syria.
Of course, part of the war on Syria is the gas. Not so much the gas that is in the Mediterranean that has been discovered. Actually, it's been discovered since 2005, and that's what's one of the reasons I believe Rafiq Hariri was assassinated, because it was already bringing corporations to explore the gas in the Mediterranean. But yeah, of course, Qatar wants to pass the gas through Syria to Europe. Right now, the monopoly that Russia has over Europe is one country that can only, as you know, gas has to go through pipelines. It's not like oil, you can put in tankers and go around the world. So the only way the Qatari gas can get to Europe is through Syria. So that's why Qatar is fighting so hard. And that's why Moscow is defending Syria so hard, among many other reasons. But yes, of course, that is one thing that is to be true about the gas.
I just wanted to say a few things. I've known Cynthia for a couple of years, and I'm very ashamed of my country, my government, for destroying the world, and it's so appalling. But the problem is people don't realize it. I've been involved with the legal end of a law the last few years, and people think the government has authority over you. People think police and the courts have authority over you. They do not. Just as I don't have more power than God, I can't create heaven and earth. We, the people, created the United States of America, and we've hired congressmen, presidents, judges, policemen as employees to be trustees of our affairs.
That's right.
They do not have authority over you. The only thing the government was supposed to do is protect individual rights. The police are murdering and slaughtering people on the streets in the United States, right and left. They're in fear of our lives. I'm sorry, don't become a cop or a fireman if you're going to be in fear of your life. That's the job, okay? But I'm sorry, they are abusing. The courts are a criminal racketeering syndicate. Like the traffic courts, everything people get involved with, they violate the Constitution. It's insane what's going on. What can we do? It's our country. They're our employees. They go, like with the Occupy Wall Street, Occupy LA, well, you're on government land. No, it's our land. We didn't sell it to you. This is our land. You work for us. You're our employees. And they tell people, you know, I mean, numbers is what we have. You don't need any guns, just a good loudspeaker system. But I'm sorry, you're all under arrest. And people don't realize this. Penal Code 834, there's no such thing as citizen arrest. The only two people that can conduct an arrest is law enforcement and you people. A judge can't arrest anybody. No public official can. You have the same power as a police officer. It's called citizen arrest, but people don't know the law. It's so complicated, and it's crazy. But like I said, this is our country, and this is our world. I mean, this is, you know, we need to stop this now, to tomorrow, not next week or whatever. The criminal elite have run the world for the longest period of time. The bankers are in control. There's no difference between the Democrats and Republicans. They're rich elite hired guns, and that's it. You know, but you know, we can stop it. I mean, there's 320 million of us. There's a few thousand bad guys. Trust me, we can take them, and we just need a good loudspeaker.
Yeah, and I'm ready to take it. I'd just like to add, though, to Fernando's question. that there's natural resources, but I think there's an ideology that is guiding all of what is happening to this country now. And I think the ideology is, maybe I haven't explained it well enough, but Johnny mentioned it. And that's this idea of greater Israel. Because if Israel's boundaries have to encompass that entire area, then everyone has to be sufficiently weak in order to allow the inevitable, what they view the inevitable, to take place. And so what we are witnessing is what I would call the weakening, the debilitation of opposition to another move. And then, of course, there is the whole geostrategic, when you've got cold warriors in charge of U.S. policy, then you have that cold warrior attitude. And there's this idea about the ability of the United States to maintain control over the world, global dominance. And in order to do that, the United States has to control the Eurasian landmass. Well, they basically got Europe under control. And so it's the Asian part of that Eurasian landmass that becomes the equation for the continued domination of China and Russia, to prevent the rise of China and Russia, which is also a part of this whole geostrategic game that is being played. And that's why, you know, they don't mind killing people, because this is about the continued domination of the United States. And some people would say that we have crossed over into a multipolar world. Well, I don't think we've crossed over into a multipolar world yet, because we have not seen Russia or China willing to use their military in the same way that the United States has demonstrated that it is willing to use its military. So it is still a unipolar world as far as the thinking and the implementation, or the reason for the implementation of U.S. policy, is still very much unipolar. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say too was I was having a discussion with some Israelis who opposed to the Israel position, and they believe that Avigdor Lieberman is going to succeed Netanyahu, and that these are very, very trying days for the ideology of Zionism. So, and they believe that the war against Iran, there's certain internal preparations that are being made inside Israel. And once those defensive capabilities have been raised to a sufficient level, then we will see the move on Iran, which will come after Syria has been dispensed with. So, you know, it's not just a move on resources, because that will come, but there's as much an ideological foundation for what's happening now, and we have to recognize that.
Yes, I like your words and about all your spirit, your passion, and your soul.
Thank you.
And in reference to a statement you made that they want to do in Syria what they did in Libya, you are very right. And it seems to me that's exactly what they want to do. And the reason why they haven't done it yet, it's because of they're afraid of the Russians and the Chinese, and they are cowards, but they are also criminals. So they are talking about doing it. I heard some of them inside Congress and outside Congress say we shouldn't be controlled by the United Nations. We should act if we need to outside the United Nations. And I heard the White House talking about red lights, like one of them was the Assad moving chemical weapons. It's a red light, they said. And also Turkey. I heard them saying Turkey is a victim. If Turkey is attacked, NATO has to defend Turkey. Now I have a question regarding all of this. What are the Russians and the Chinese going to do if they come with a NATO and they start bombing the people of Syria? And what is Iran and the friends of the Syrian people? I'm not talking about Assad, I'm talking about the Syrian people, and I'm talking about war criminals. So what are they going to do if this happens? Because I think there is a serious danger that is going to happen. I may be wrong, I hope I am. Okay, that's it.
Very good points. There's 2 points that caught my attention. World War III is taking place right now. There is World War III. Unfortunately, since there's now a nuclear polar strength, they're not going to go after each other. They go on someone else's land. But what is happening in Syria is World War III. 100%. There's forces of the world are divided over Syria today. When you see the Russian and Chinese, China never used the veto in its life, and Russia last time was 1954. When you see double veto 3 times, you know this is definitely a stance that Russia and China would not. Unlike what they tell you that they will change their position, they will make some sort of a deal. There is no deal bigger than Syria in the world. So there is no deal that is going to convince Russia to let go of Syria. That's one point. The second point you mentioned, chemical weapons. I'm going to make this for the first time. I've been thinking about that for a few weeks. You might hear soon, I hope not, that some chemical weapons has been hit in Syria by the Syrian government. Why I say that? Because they're stirring that up in the news, and it has no basis of any truth. However, I read an article that was in November last year, when the Syrian Council, National Council, the SNC, went to Libya, if you remember, November of last year, and they made a deal, what they call weapons for human rights, where they would ship Libyans weapons. They come through Turkey. We're talking heavy artillery are flying from Libya with weapons and mercenaries into Syria. And some of these have already, in my opinion, chemical weapons. There is chemical weapons in Libya. It's under their control now. So I won't be surprised to see anytime soon, if all else is failed, you know what they do, they always look for something bigger. That to see a small chemical bomb dropped somewhere in one of those populated areas and blaming the Syrian government to try and stir up again. I'm making this prediction, but I have a feeling this might be coming up pretty soon because they run out of options.
I would like to mention the theory of the deep state, which is a academic theory that was put forward by Dr. Peter Dale Scott, Professor Emeritus at the University of California at Berkeley. And I think it's very important for people in this room to understand the real nature of the United States. Founded on genocide and built on slavery. So this is a criminal enterprise from its very founding. Notwithstanding the fact that it has been good to some people, some of us understand the reality of what it means to be here. And so this idea that Professor Scott puts forward of the deep state is something that I think every person in the United States needs to know about. Because the deep state is constitutes that part of the government and of government behavior that the operators inside the government who use deep events don't want the people to know about. So, for example, the deep state, we are able to see that a deep state exists when a deep event exists, or when a deep event occurs. So now, what's a deep event? The murder of the assassination of John Kennedy. That's a deep event. Operation Northwoods was a deep event. It never happened though. The counterintelligence program targeting Black Panther Party, American Indian Movement, radical whites, who almost came to the point of creating the United States that was worthy of being a beacon of hope to other people around the world. And when their leaders were murdered, whether it's the Black Panther Party members who were murdered, or Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all of those individuals who were murdered, those are deep events of the deep state. And so now we've seen that these kinds of events can take place under the cover of the complicit media, who will not call them on their acts. And what Johnny is talking about is a false flag operation that is very capable of occurring, that will inaugurate what he's talking about, the World War III. Michelle Chasudowski of globalresearch.ca has already called what is happening now the opening shot of World War III. So, is it possible or even likely that there will be events that will take place that will be blamed on others that others did not do? Absolutely yes. And actually, I brought, this is the book on Libya that has facts in it that no one would ever know, except maybe some Libyans and the people who went there, the people who lived there during the time. But that's me standing in front of a site of a war crime. The title is The Illegal War on Libya, and Didan went to Libya with me while NATO was bombing. So these false flag operations, these deep events, these events that happen with a cover excuse, they can happen, and just know, be prepared to understand what it is when you see it.
Cynthia,